Well, I think the General's right. There lacks a general strategy that's going to achieve this. If anyone thinks that by bombing alone we are going to defeat ISIS, they're sadly mistaken. There need to be boots on the ground. And whose boots are they going to be? Because the Kurds will fight very bravely and have fought very bravely to the edge of their territory. But who is going to fight?
Well, I think there's a general view they're not going to be British or American boots.
There seems to be no inclination in Western countries to anywhere to send forces to do this. So we need other people's forces. And who are they going to be? As I say, the Kurds won't go into the Sunni areas. The Shia have shown no ability to go into the Sunni areas of Iraq. And even if they did, who's going to fight in Syria? As the General was saying, the FSA is tiny, the Free Syrian Army is tiny, and they're going to be fighting Assad, not fighting ISIS. So who is actually going to do this fighting?
Well, I'm interviewing you. I mean, who are you suggesting?
Well, I think you need to get Sunni fighters. The most obvious way to do it would be to go back to the Anbar awakening that we had when we were in Iraq, where the Americans managed to get the Sunni tribes to rise up against the predecessor of ISIS and fight al-Qaeda in Iraq very successfully. We need that sort of strategy again, but we don't have it.
So do we need Saudi Arabians? Do we need other Gulf forces? Do we need, as the General was saying, the Turks?
I'd be very surprised if the Turks actually go into Syria, and if they did, they would probably be fighting the Kurds rather than fighting the ISIS in those circumstances. Nor do I think, given the current war in Yemen, it's very likely that we'll see Saudi and other forces in Syria. So no, I don't think that's very likely. I think we need to have homegrown Sunni forces in Iraq and homegrown Sunni forces in Syria to do that. And more than that, I think we actually need a political strategy. And I think, in a way, that's what's most lacking. It's not just a military strategy, but if this is going to work, we have to have a political strategy.
But meanwhile, as the General says, the Islamic State is consolidating. And to a certain extent, those people in the theatre who are not prepared to take it on look a bit like fellow travellers, don't they, without putting it too crudely?
Well, yes, but I think the real problem is we have to look at why ISIS or Daesh are being so successful. What is it that's underpinning their success? And in the end, it is the support that they get from Sunnis in Iraq and in Syria who feel disenfranchised. They feel that they were left with a Maliki sectarian Shia government in Baghdad that was exploiting them. How else could 1,000 ISIS fighters take over a city the size of Mosul? They could only do that, 1 million people. They could only do that if there was some support for them. And unless we address that issue...
The army ran away, didn't it?
The army ran away, and a large part of the public ran away subsequently, but there was no resistance from the public to ISIS coming in, because they saw the Maliki government as being so evil, so difficult for them, they could actually prefer
So
ISIS.
they'd prefer the sort of things that we're seeing now. So you're saying that the people on the ground prepare the beheadings and the chucking gays off buildings and drowning people and setting fire to them and forced marriages and suicide bombing. You're saying that's what the local people actually want?
No doubt that the majority of people hate all of that stuff. On the other hand, they quite like being provided with bread, having some way of living, have some sort of stability. And above all, they don't want to have those things happening to them from a government based in Baghdad that we left in charge of Baghdad without allowing any proper dialogue.
So you're saying you think that people actually prefer IS to...
I think that people certainly preferred IS when it came in to what they had, the Assad government or to the Maliki government in Iraq. And unless we address that issue of how are we going to reconcile Sunnis, if you look at who the number twos in the ISIS organisation are, so after Mr al-Baghdadi, nearly all of them, as far as we know them, are ex-Saddam military people. They're not suddenly discovered a loving for a caliphate. What they want to do is attack Shia.